Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing.
It's 9 p.m. I'm Patrick Christie. Tonight,
very poor sort of pleasant background exhibit discrediting the people.
a bombshell exclusive with Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch.
There are some places where when people behave in that way, a mob turns up and burns their house down.
You will want to hear what she has to say about Pakistani rape gangs. Also tonight,
The finances are now on a firm footing.
I stand here also as a black man whose ancestors were taken in chains from Africa.
But the message from government is we've got to build this energy infrastructure for energy security, for good jobs, for lower bills.
Keir Starmer's cabinet is in crisis. All his big hitters are now in massive trouble. Well, he sacked a lot of them, and today it got even worse for Starmer. Now Labour MPs from both Rochdale and Rotherham are demanding a full rape gang inquiry. Also tonight,
got to be careful of encouraging people to think they've got some sort of condition other than, simply confronting the challenges of life.
You won't hear me say this very often. Is Tony Blair right? He says that too many people are playing the mental health card. I've got two TV psychologists who vehemently disagree. Plus,
it's just disgusting. People want answers. We should be able to have them.
in just a few moments' time, I'll be making a huge announcement about support for victims of Pakistani rape gangs alongside Maggie Oliver, and it involves you. So watch this space. And more migration madness, I'm afraid. A Jamaican rapist can't be deported because he claims he's bisexual, despite there being no evidence of him dating men. But in other news,
trans women are women, but in the prison context, there is no automatic right for a trans woman.
There are contexts where a trans woman is not a woman.
No, there is. There is.
Nicola Sturgeon has announced that she's getting a divorce, which will come as a surprise to absolutely nobody. But who gets custody of the motorhome? On my panel tonight is Daily Express columnist Carol Malone.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them. On the 20th of November 2003, James Ignatius O'Rourke McMahon was elected councillor for the Failsworth East Ward of Oldham. Deeply ambitious, he ruthlessly rose to power, and by 2011 he was already leader of the council. In 2015, exploiting a Labour Party loophole, he became MP for Oldham West and Royton. If only the people of the town knew then what they now know. Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.
Very good evening, Monday the 13th of January 2025. My name is Raja MIAH. This is another one of those Recusant 9 transmissions. We seem to be having a few more of them than usual, but we have been on a journey, many of us, and whilst we're riding this crest of a wave, I think it's best for us to try and get as many people on board as possible. And for those who are interested in this topic or coming new to the topic, to go and engage with a wide range of commentators out there, and hopefully they will come back and recognise that I'm not a commentator, I'm actually a campaigner, and if anything an analyst. I'm a campaigner, I'm a community campaigner, and for the last 6 years I have been leading a small team of people in the northern mill town of Oldham to first and foremost expose the cover-up of the grooming and gang rape of our town's children, and then pursue justice. And the way we've been doing this is by taking out Labour Party politicians at the ballot box and pushing for a public inquiry and every time they voted one down at the next election, we took more Labour Party politicians out at the ballot box. We didn't take to the streets, we didn't take part in protest. I'm sure protests are fine, I'm sure rallies are fine, I'm sure demonstrations are fine. They all contribute, but in the end, if you're not making a difference at the ballot box, if you're not holding those in power to account and forcing them to change, and as we found out, the only way these people do change is if their lives depend on it, as in their careers depend on it, if their livelihoods, their positions of power depend on it. So that's where I come from. I'm not really a shouter, screamer. My analysis tends to be very analytical, and I come from a slightly different place. I am brown-faced, I am a Muslim, and I am a product of a society that is not seen, or less seen than it once perhaps was, where we all grew up together, we played with each other, and we valued each other. And that is increasingly less and less in this world, and there's less and less that I recognise. So I and a small group of my friends have been fighting now for 6 years. We've been called far-right racist from one side, and we've been called extremists in terms of too sympathetic to Muslims from the other side. The left and right isn't really something we play. We just want a town where our children can grow up safely. And that is the campaign that we've been leading. Now, I was watching GB News because I was hoping to catch up with Maggie Oliver. She sent a message out earlier to say she was on GB News for some announcement, so that's why I was watching in the background. But I want to get this nonsense out of the way first, please, if it's okay with everyone. And I am not criticising, I am not complaining. I don't want people to take anything as though it's something negative from me. It is just the way it is. And there's nothing I can do about it. But as the mainstream media in Oldham have come to find out, that in the end, no matter how much they ignored me, no matter how much they avoided me, the narrative in the town was set by me. And I'm not in any way being arrogant in saying that. The narrative, the political narrative in the town for 6 years or so now has been set by myself, and I've educated a small number of people, and then others have took it and claimed it as their own and amplified it, and that's fine, because that's how this journey works, and that's how we bring about the change that we do. So I want to end this nonsense now, because I keep getting messages from people who've never contacted me before, who are engaged with me and have come to join me, and it's fine. It's absolutely fine. Raja, why aren't you talking with GB News? Charlie Peters has invited you on. This has happened, that's happened. You're keeping your information hidden. Why aren't you taking part? I have put out an open call on X, begging. That's right, the word is begging anyone from the mainstream media, including GB News, to interview me and speak with me. Now, I understand how the media is supposed to work. I'm not supposed to go begging any of these news agencies for an interview. But regardless, I have. Bear in mind, I am the person who brought all this to light. I'm the one who's campaigned from the beginning, and the campaign we led is what led to Jess Phillips's letter. We released Jess Phillips's letter, and that's when this latest wave came along. I've put my testimony out there. It's very clear what I've endured to get here. Not one will tell my story, and not one will speak to me and take my analysis or my perspective on what is taking place. BBC, ITV, Channel 4, Sky News, or in this case, GB News. Now, I don't like being made out to be a liar or in any way presented as though I'm not telling the truth. And the reason why is because, first and foremost, I'm not a liar. And secondly, if you've had as many lies told about you as I have, particularly by those in the media, then over a period of time, you become less tolerant than perhaps you once were. And I am an extremely tolerant person. So, here. Because I always keep the receipts. This is a text message, and I'll read it. Hello there, Raja. Henry Monk here from GB News. Hope all is well. I am the senior producer at the channel, and I was wondering if you could join Nana Akua at 5 p.m. to discuss a week in grooming gangs, etc. Thanks, Henry. That message came to me whilst I was on my way to London on Saturday. I was on my way to London to do the Heretics podcast. My position is simple. I'm a man who keeps his word. I wasn't going to do anything other than the Heretics podcast that I'd agreed to. So this was my response. Hi Henry, thank you for making the time to reach out. I'm actually London recording a podcast with Andy Gould for his Heretics show. I'll be finished by 6 p.m. Unfortunately, 5 p.m. does not work for me, but happy to delay my train back up to Manchester if we can make something work. Yeah. He messaged me at 12. I'm on my way to London. At 12:35, I message him back. That's reasonable, isn't it? What time are you recording your podcast? Where is it in London? I'll be in North London. I'm with him between 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. Any chance you could do 3 p.m. in the studio? If too tight, then no worries. I won't be in London by then, I'm afraid. If I have time, it is after 6 p.m. Okay, no worries. Can we do something on Monday? Sure. Remote or studio, it would be with Martin Dobney, and we can do a slot between 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Whatever time works best for you and your viewers. I have no issue catching another train down to London tomorrow if you think it will be better than remote. So I'm offering to catch another train down to London the day after at my expense, because I've never taken any travel expenses from any of the people who have me on, because I'm grateful that they have me on and allow me the opportunity to share our story. So I refuse all expenses. So you're clear. In studio is of course always better. Then in studio it is. Okay, excellent. My colleague Eleanor will be in touch to confirm a time. It will be our Westminster studios, and then this message happens. Really sorry about this, Raja, but we are going to have to stand down the interview on Monday. That means cancel. No problem. Is there a reason why? We have decided, senior producer, we have decided, having done a full week of covering the story on grooming gangs, to move away our news focus. I sent him this back. That just popped up. Well, Martin Dobney is inviting Adnan Hussain MP onto his show on Monday to discuss how British Pakistanis are, because there's this divide and rule narrative, isn't there? So to anyone, once and for all, to anyone who claims that I am in any way not stepping up to the plate, not people. I've risked my life getting this out. Why would I not speak to anyone? I speak to everyone. At 8 in the morning tomorrow, I'm at some service station speaking to a journalist who's there. I'm speaking to some French journalists at 3 o'clock. I'm driving down to Derby on Wednesday to do a podcast with someone there. You can see, surely you can see what sort of man I am. So please, no more sending me messages as though I am somehow responsible for not being able to get onto GB News or ITV or BBC. There is nothing more I can do. Now, what I'd say, because it's the man I am, without GB News doing what they've done, in particular Charlie Peters and the others, we would not be here. In this journey to where we are now, they have at least played as much of a role as anyone, if not more. Because it's not in me to compete. I have no desire to. It's not in me to pick a fight with someone else who's doing it their own way. I have no desire to. That ego doesn't exist in me. If you ask me what's going on, I'm too dangerous. I take this to a space that they all find uncomfortable. However, I take this to a space, and I have been taking this to a space, where now more and more people are ending up in that position. So we will continue to campaign, to inform, to influence, to encourage. And you will see, we will do it on a national platform in the same way we did it on a local platform. Because I can do this. And yes, it would have helped, but it doesn't matter. And not for 1 minute do I think it's Charlie or Martin or any of the others. I think there are other games being played here, and I'll share you a story. A local journalist finally found the courage to reach out to Jim McMahon and to ask him some questions. He'd arranged to meet with McMahon. He'd met with him McMahon before. And do you know what happened? McMahon never showed. The Labour Party lawyers turned up. My friend Gary Tarbuck's here. And he was with me. He'll share with you how when we ran a campaign, the Labour Party attempted to sue me. And because he was my agent, they threatened to sue him as well. I took time out of the campaign, went and found lawyers that I knew, to respond to the Labour Party to say, no, we stand by our leaflets that there's been a cover-up of the grooming and gang rape of children and Jim McMahon is involved in that cover-up. And the people of Oldham have a right to know, and he owes them pages and pages. The stuff they sent me through was this thick. My house was at risk. Because that's lawfare, that's what they do. And remember, I'd just come off bail where I'd won the last of my court cases. So for me, this isn't a job. I'm not protected. If it goes wrong, everything I have goes. So of course I'm disappointed, but it's okay. So please, no more GB News, GB News, GB News. Or sending me messages as though I'm somehow responsible. I put a message out last week. I have information. It's not here, I don't know why I'm looking there, but I have information that I believe will take this government down. I've dotted the I's, crossed the T's, fact-checked it. Not one of them will speak to me. If you were that sort of journalist, would you not want to speak to me? I don't know. I don't know if Ofcom's got involved. What I do know is, whatever the reason as to why I'm not on GB News, it isn't coming from me. And I'm problematic, aren't I? I'm problematic. One, because of the way I look, but I think that's not it. I'd still be problematic if I was white-faced and Christian. Because I understand the games that they are playing. And they don't want to go where I take this. Give me a second. I'm trying to read and I've got a glare in the screen. I'm going blind and I need some reading glasses because it's the age. Probably the latter. Yes, because it fits a narrative, doesn't it? It fits a narrative. And I agree with you. I agree with you. I think that's exactly it. Which is what I want to focus my time with you this evening, if it's okay with all of you. Please, if you're new to me, or if you joined me and you haven't done yet, please at the very least press the like button. Subscribe to the channel. My friend David Nestor and I had a chat earlier. I gave him a call. I remember the time when we were struggling just to get to 1,000 subscribers. So for us, I don't know what it is now. 6,000 is like, it's like a million to us. John. I've got a file of horrific abuse directed my way that the police have been complicit in covering up. And when the public inquiry comes, because one looks like it's going to come, I will testify and you will see what they have to say for their role in inciting the murder of someone who dared to challenge the cover-up of the gang rape of little children. I'm not going to a protest on the 20th in Oldham because I don't really do protests. I am going to the council meeting on the 20th. And if there are people outside, we will speak and then we'll go in and we'll behave like the human beings that we are in a council meeting, so they have no reason to shout and scream at us. And when they close that council meeting down, it will be a consequence of their own volition rather than attempting to blame it on us. So yes, I am going to the council meeting on the 20th, and I hope as many people as possible will come with me. I'm sorry, Marianne. You're new to me. No. It doesn't work like that. You don't go and bang your head against the people who are going to say no to you anyway. That's why, one of the reasons why they hate me. What's the point of me going over there and asking for something if I'm going to get slapped by him? The way we beat these people is to threaten them at the ballot box. It's the only thing they understand. We campaign, and we threaten them at the ballot box. We use the media, however, wherever we can, to keep this issue in the public attention. And we work with the politicians who will work with us, irrespective of which party they belong to. And that's how we will get to the outcome. Because what's the outcome? What is the outcome you want? What is the outcome I want? I know what the outcome I want is. What's the outcome you want? Tell me what the outcome is you want at the end of this. And this is why they are now attempting to also sideline me. Because you might want a national inquiry, I might want a national inquiry, but I'm very, very clear on what that national inquiry needs to include. Which is a good place to stop and move forward with what we want to talk about. Indeed, Paulie. Absolutely. Okay. I'm going to put my headphones on and I want to take you on a journey. Please, if you can, if you haven't, I'm so grateful to those of you who've given me £3, £10, £20. So grateful. Thank you so much. I think 13,000 people in the end watched yesterday's broadcast when I last checked. So please, if you're one of those 13,000 from yesterday in particular and haven't supported me, please consider supporting me. This is an MP called Luke Charters. Sarah Champion reposted this and the video. I'm going to play both. Luke Charters MP. Misinformation is becoming a worrying part of our democracy. Pushed by the far right and now amplified by the Conservatives. This week, Labour MPs voted against a Tory attempt to block the Children's Well-Being and Schools Bill. I explained this on Politics North this morning. So I'm going to play it, you're going to listen to him. Says I.
Years. It's got
hold on, there you
the
go.
national inquiry that we had, the Professor J report had over 1,000 victims, £200 million, took 7 years. It's got 20 recommendations in there. None of them have been implemented, Tim. None of them have been implemented. We've got to get on with it for the sake of protecting children.
You voted against this when it came to that vote.
No, can I just take that on directly, because that's incorrect, Tim.
You voted against a new national inquiry.
No, I didn't. What the vote was on Wednesday, all Labour MPs voted against an attempt to stop the Children and Wellbeing Bill.
But you've made it clear you do not support a new national inquiry.
Well, if the victims want to come forward, and that's what they want, but what we're saying is time for action, not words. We've got to get on with implementing some of these things. But can I be clear, Tim, because you raised it, Labour MPs stopped efforts to reverse the Children and Wellbeing Bill. That's got measures that the NSPCC, headquartered here in Leeds, and Bernardo's have praised for protecting children.
And you can see he put it on X and Sarah Champion retweeted it. Now, first and foremost, he's a liar. And I'll tell you why he's a liar. If all Labour MPs voted to protect the Children and Wellbeing Bill, if all Labour MPs voted to protect that bill, then why did the likes of Angela Rayner, Yvette Cooper and a couple of others abstain? That vote was not to protect the Children and Wellbeing Bill. It was a vote on a public inquiry. And the highest politicians in the Labour government knew it, because the highest tier politicians in the Labour government, including Angela Rayner, abstained. You see, just like that, we make people, we expose them to be the liars that they are. Now, the second thing he says is about if the victims ask for it. What sort of society is this where those who have had horrific crimes committed on them are tasked with the responsibility of pleading to politicians to do something about being gang raped? What sort of society is it that they've got to go and do the equivalent of Oliver Twist and please sir, can I have some more? Please sir, will you help me? That's not how members of parliament are supposed to work. That's not how this scumbag is supposed to behave. It is the duty of MPs to represent the people of this country. It is their duty. It is not for them to sit in their offices claiming £100,000 plus expenses, to sit and wait for children who've been gang raped to go to them pleading to have something done about it. That is a disgraceful narrative that has been repeatedly pushed by the Labour Party, and I have seen no one challenge it. These people should be ashamed of themselves. And Sarah Champion, the Rotherham MP, a couple of days ago, one day ago, yesterday, was pushing this narrative. Then something changed. Thank you so much for the super chat. There are super chats here. If anyone else wants to super chat, thank you. I will be grateful. If anyone wants to buy me a coffee or a samosa, in joke, one day we'll get to it. Indeed, Raina did abstain. I'll tell you why Angela Raina abstained. She didn't abstain because she didn't see it as a vote to do with the Children and Wellbeing Bill. She saw it as a vote to do with a public inquiry into the cover-up of the grooming and gang rape of working class white girls. She represents a constituency of working class white girls. She likes to present herself as one, although not with the value set of the working class white women that I know in my life. She abstained because she didn't want it on her record. It's as simple as that. She abstained because she didn't want it on her record that she had voted to protect Pakistani rape gangs. Thank you, Patrick. Much appreciated. And of course, she's got her eye on the, politicians always dream of the top job. So I'm going to play this, which is an interview. Sorry, let me pause it. How can I pause it? An interview with Simon Danczuk.
There are people out there saying...
who was the former MP for Rochdale. Listen to the interview. It's a couple of minutes. I want you to listen to it because it will show you how we've been taking it somewhere where they've called us far-right conspiracy theorists, and now a former MP is validating what we have been saying for the last 6 years. Listen to this. In fact, you don't need me.
Danczuk, the former Labour MP for Rochdale, who has essentially seen this cover-up firsthand. And there are people out there saying, has the establishment, have authorities been working overtime to try and distract us from this issue? Just tell us your experience.
Yeah, so I was the Member of Parliament from 2010 to 2017 in Rochdale, and it was in 2012 that the Rochdale grooming scandal broke. It was new to me. I wasn't from the area originally. And as soon as it broke, I called out the ethnicity and religious aspect to this abuse. I said that they were important factors in the abuse taking place. And then I campaigned for 3 years solid on child abuse issues, whether it be Cyril Smith, historic abuse, but also the grooming scandals that were occurring across the country. And I raised lots of issues in Parliament and elsewhere on those issues. So that's the context. But what surprised me more than anything, really, is that I had senior politicians tell me not to mention the ethnicity or religious bias of those perpetrators. So the first example...
Who was that?
So first instance was Jim Dobbin, who was the MP for Harewood and Middleton at the time.
Right.
And the perpetrators tended to come from Rochdale and the victims tended to live in Harewood and Middleton. These are two constituencies coterminous
I know
with
the
Rochdale.
seat very well. My mother-in-law lives there.
Yeah. And so the poor white working class girls were often from council estates in Harewood and Middleton. And he said to me at some function, because we attend the same functions, listen, don't mention the ethnicity, there's no advantage to it, it'll affect the Labour vote. And he was quite clear.
And they said that, it would affect the Labour vote?
He was quite clear about that. That was his advice
Outrageous.
to me. He was a much older MP. I'd been there for 2 years. I was very new, and he probably thought he was giving me some good advice. The second instance where this happened is more significant in my view, because it was Tony Lloyd, who was chair of the Parliamentary Labour Party. That's a very influential position within the Parliamentary Labour Party, there's no doubt about that. He was running to be police commissioner for Greater Manchester. This story broke, and he came to see me because he wanted to comment on it, and it was on my patch. And he said the same thing. He said, "Listen, I don't believe ethnicity is an issue in all of this, and I'm going to make that clear when I raise it at Prime Minister's questions." He also and it's on the record. I mean, he made a speech in Parliament in 2012 where he said something very similar and drew comparisons with Jimmy Savile. Why, I do not know.
Can I ask you a question? When I showed the tweet earlier on by Labour MP Naz Shah, who said, "Oh, actually, it was an accident. I didn't mean to suggest that we should tell these young girls to shut up and we should basically, prioritise diversity." Yeah. Do you think things like that were an accident, or do you think this is actually a reflection of the Labour mentality about this issue?
It's the mentality. There's no doubt about that. I've been in Labour politics for decades, and this
you know the Labour Party?
I know the Labour Party exceptionally well. What I tell you about Jim Dobbin and about Tony Lloyd is absolutely accurate. And then the other surprise to me, having campaigned on this for 3 years solid, I met the Home Secretary on a number of occasions. She would phone me up at home, Theresa May. Theresa May. She would speak to me about these issues, child abuse issues. I went to a summit with David Cameron at 10 Downing Street. So over that 3 years, I worked with the Conservative Party, because it's not a party political issue. And yet, Yvette Cooper, the Shadow Home Secretary, during that time, never spoke to me or asked me about my experiences in campaigning on this on any occasion.
So can I ask you a question? When I see people like Jess Phillips, Stella Creasy, who have talked endlessly about abuse against women and children at the hands of men, but seem to say nothing at all when it involves Pakistani Muslim gangs, or when you do voice it, they say, well, actually, that's a bit far right. What's going on there? What's this reflecting within the Labour Party? I mean, are these people genuinely not interested in this issue because they would rather prioritise, their Muslim constituents?
Well, they're playing politics with the issue, which I think is appalling. I just made that point that this is a cross-party issue. There shouldn't be any politics to it. Yeah, absolutely. But they're worried about losing votes. That is a mentality with it. I'm not saying every Labour MP, but a proportion of Labour MPs are concerned about losing votes.
And I know you might not know him too well, but what's your instinct, your political instinct on where Keir Starmer is on this? Do you think he gets the strength of feeling out there in the country about this issue?
No, I think I've described him before, but he fits into this North London Labour elite, and they all have a similar view of how you do politics, which groups in society are right, who you should kowtow to, who you should listen to, who you shouldn't listen to.
Well, Simon Danchuk, it's great to have you with us, telling us that first-hand experience. So we Paul Danchuk, the former Labour.
Why we need an inquiry, Jeremy, and not a sort of...
OK, I'll get to the next video in a second. Just give me a second. So this smear Simon Danchuk, because he was ostracised and he had to quit in the end over some sex scandal. But he was sending, I think he was sending dick pics or something, but it was between him and a consenting adult. So what a politician or what any man or woman does with another adult in their own time, of their own volition, free will, I'm not really interested in. And nor am I interested in those of you who've saying, why didn't he speak out before? Why did he do this? Why didn't he do that? Listen. He's spoken out now. For whatever reason, he might not have the courage before. I don't know. It might not have been a politically opportune time. But you've got to understand something again. We are using insurgency tactics in our campaign. When someone comes along, for whatever reason, to amplify our message, I'm not going to pick a fight with him or her. I'm going to use it. And now what we've got is a former Labour Party MP, confirming the involvement of multiple senior Labour Party figures, including Tony Lloyd, who was the chair of the Labour Party, the Parliamentary Labour Party, the chair. That is one of the most powerful positions you can have in the Labour Party. And he threatened Simon Danchuk. Because they were worried about losing votes. Now, where I come from, in the years we've been doing this, worried about losing votes. Wow, we are so close. We are so close now to the position we have. They weren't just worried about losing votes. It's how they secured their votes. It's a small shift in the language, but it's important. Because they were worried about losing votes plays into the narrative that all the Muslims are sex offenders and they're protecting the child sex offenders, and if they speak out, all the Muslims will turn their back on them. No. What is going on here is the Labour Party's relationship with cartel kingpins who control the postal vote, whose immediate family members, if not them directly, are involved in organised crime. It's a triangle. There's a businessman, a politician, and a gangster. Now, over recent years, it hasn't been as tidy a fit as that because of the Islamist dimension, the jihadi dimension that has come in, and you're seeing that play out with organisations in my town such as the Oldham group. Pakistani sectarians. Every councillor they have is a Muslim. Every candidate they've ever had is a Muslim. Can you imagine that for any other party? And there are groups like this, growing groups like this across the country. And it's essentially a Labour Party civil war. I call it a cartel civil war. Because when you strip it back, it's two crime families or or a combination of crime families that are fighting it out. And the political field is just one of the areas in which the battle is taking place. And the Labour Party have been playing with them, partnering with them. I'm afraid the Me Too movement isn't going... Sorry, it's this one I wanted. I don't think a Me Too movement is going to come and help working class white girls, because the women who have historically been aligned with the Me Too movement are and promoted that are of that metropolitan elite who knew about this, who worked in the Labour Party, who worked in the councils. We've witnessed them firsthand in our town. They hold key power positions and they do well for themselves out of it. And white working class girls is a price worth paying for their careers, just as white working class girls is a price worth paying for the votes from the cartel kingpins. You can see it, can't you, Roy? You can see what's going on. So this was Simon in the Telegraph. Ex-Labour chairman told me not to raise grooming ethnicity to keep votes. Simon Danchuk claims Tony Lloyd made attempts within Parliament to disassociate the grooming scandal from the Asian Muslim community. Well, he's not claiming, is he? Because it'll be a matter of public record. If Tony Lloyd said something, it'll be recorded or it'll be written down. It'll be a matter of public record. And why is anyone surprised? Why is anyone surprised? Because here is an MP now playing the deflection game. The demonising of a whole minority group by some politicians and media is deeply troubling and in fact highly dangerous. Well, who's demonising the whole minority group? I don't think anyone for 1 minute is suggesting that every Pakistani is a rapist. But it was okay, wasn't it? It was okay to look towards the white community in this country and assume that they, what was the phrase? What's the phrase they used? Unconscious bias. So you're automatically racist even if you don't know it. Well, why can't you be automatically supportive of treating working class white girls as dirt, even if you don't overtly demonstrate that, Adnan Hussain MP? Surely if you're using one strategy with one community, that same strategy can be used with another community. He did, didn't he? Simon Danchuk blew the whistle on Cyril Smith, who was protected by MI5. Of course, all of that only came out after he died. He was as bad as Jimmy Savile, wasn't he, Tony? If not worse. So, that's Simon. Any other piece in the Mail today, I think, if anyone reads it? I know the sickening reasons Labour wanted to cover up the rape gang scandals. What I was told when I was Rochdale MP is utterly shocking, and now I'm exposing these politicians. Well, he mentioned Yvette Cooper wouldn't speak with him as Shadow Home Secretary, even though the Home Secretary would, Theresa May, because this is a cross-party issue. It's not party political, it shouldn't be. Yvette Cooper, of course, is the woman who gave Amanda Chaddison a job after we removed her as council leader over her role in the cover-up of the grooming and gang rape of children. Tony Lloyd, for those of you who joined me yesterday, you'll have seen his name on the emails, and he was involved in the disciplinary action that punished Hughie MacDonald. It was him and Jim McMahon who got rid of Hughie MacDonald. See how the same names circle around and around and around? I want to play this. I want to go this way.
Why we need an inquiry, Jeremy, and not a sort of an inquiry that skates over the surface. Yeah. I think we want a proper inquiry that has all the drains up. And if this has been happening, whatever the reason it's been hidden, whether it's, a block Asian vote which is supporting Labour, whether it's a fear of being called racist, I think what we want is the drains up. We want all the facts out there, and then the British public can judge for themselves.
Okay, now listen to this.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Given that the opposition amendment has been accepted, I'm not going to stand here and outline my disgust at what has happened with regard to the historic grooming gang scandal. The British people want answers, so I'm going to ask questions of the Labour Party, and several of them. Will the government commit to urgently deporting all guilty foreign nationals involved, including family members who were aware of the crimes and therefore complicit? Wives, sisters, mothers, cousins, if they knew and said nothing, these individuals are just as guilty as the rapists themselves. Will the government commit to stripping citizenship from dual nationals implicated and deport them as well? Race or religion must protect nobody. Will the government commit to pausing all Pakistani visas and foreign aid into the country until the Pakistani government agrees to accept any of its deported citizens that have perpetrated these crimes on British soil, and also imprisons these rapists and their accomplices in Pakistan, however they see fit? Will the government undertake a full investigation into officials who had knowledge of these crimes yet failed to act? Establish a specified task force to root out this wicked evil. Don't just fire these vile individuals, prosecute them. How many girls are estimated to have been raped? Is there a tally for the overall number of rapes? Horrifyingly, it may well be in the millions. We just don't know. How many vulnerable young girls are estimated to still be involved in these gangs? If there is no estimate figure, why not? Will a regular update be published detailing ongoing prosecutions and sentencing? Will the government publish a full nationality breakdown of those convicted for such offences, along with the location of their crimes? How many known foreign rapists per town, per region? Will they publish a breakdown of the immigration status of those involved? On what grounds were they in the UK? Do they have previous convictions? How many foreign nationals found guilty have been released but not deported? And how many re-offences... I'm going to carry on if that's right. How many re-offences have occurred since release? How many of these monsters are walking on the same streets as the girls they raped and abused? One report suggested a victim had come face to face with her rapist in a supermarket. Is the government comfortable with that? How many of the foreign rapists were in receipt of any form of state benefit?
Would the honourable member give
I'm going to carry on if that's right. How many released currently receive any state benefit? How many children have been born following a rape from these men? How many have been given access to the child against the mother's wishes? And how many had used the child as a route to remain in the UK? Will the government commit to preventing this in future? How many deportations have been blocked due to the rapist's right to a family life or other ECHR influences? Will the government set up a dedicated, confidential and accessible official process for whistleblowers to safely raise their concerns regarding foreign rape gangs, ensuring it is safe, secure and easy to find? Will the government release all court transcripts relating to these cases so the British people can understand just part of the horror for themselves? How many of these documents have been hidden due to the cost of release? This should not be an obstacle to transparency on these trials. Will lifelong sentences now be considered for those British citizens involved in the crimes, but also those in positions of power who acted to cover up the scale of the abuse? Which politicians, local and national, had knowledge of these events but failed to act? Again, going as far as to actively conceal what was truly happening. These are the facts that the British people want to know and the British people deserve to know. All of these questions have also been submitted in written form, and I look forward to receiving open and transparent answers. The mass rape of young white working class girls by gangs of Pakistani rapists is a rotting stain on our nation. This is not about Elon Musk. This is not a bandwagon of the far right. This is about the victims and ensuring swift and brutal justice is delivered to those demons responsible. It is about distinguishing between right and wrong. Thank
Wow. Rupert Lowe took the time to speak with a whole host of survivors, campaigners last week. I had a chat with him, lengthy chat with him. And you can see he included the British public want to know which politicians had knowledge and concealed. Did you see how uncomfortable the others were? Did you see how they were trying to shut him down? That is a long overdue speech in Parliament, raising the legitimate concerns of tens of millions of us. And again, in those small steps forward, this is a monumental step forward. Because there was a time where if you said that or I said that, we would be put in prison, would be locked, would be arrested and charged for a racially aggravated public order offence. Now an MP has stood up and said it in Parliament and refused to back down. And this is what Sarah Champion says in response.
Thank you, Madam Deputy
Speaker. I feel disgusted by what the honourable gentleman has just said. Can you imagine
if you're a victim or survivor, listening to that, I'm sure his intent is to get to the truth and get justice. But the language, please think about who hears our words.
The language. How would a victim or survivor think? Well, the last time I read a statement from a victim or a survivor, the judge made her take it out because she wanted the man deported back to Pakistan. Increasingly, victims and survivors, repeatedly victims and survivors, from the outset, victims and survivors have all been consistent on their belief that they were treated this way like trash because those who gang raped them looked down on them, their race, their culture, their religion, and believed them to be less, subhuman. And if Sarah Champion doesn't know that, I don't know when she will. That was only yesterday. Now something's happened, and I can't work out yet what that something is, but something has happened. Because she's now come out with this. I've published my 5-point plan to ensure children are safeguarded, victims and survivors can access the support they need, perpetrators are brought to justice, and those in authority are held to account. This includes a national inquiry into grooming gangs. So she's changed sides overnight. Why? Exactly, mate. Exactly. Because that's how we get them. That's how we always get them. It's the pressure. Once they realise that their jobs are on the line, that's the only way we get any of these politicians to see sense. And she's now desperately trying to distance herself from the election leaflets that will say Pakistani rape gang protector. How is that going to go down in Rotherham? Well, what was it, 15,000 girls were gang raped? Or was it 1,500? It was 15,000, wasn't it? That's exactly what it is. And that's what this relentless campaign has done. Now, she came out in the past. Give her credit, she came out in the past, wrote something in a national newspaper, I think it was The Sun, and got sacked for it. And then was out in the wilderness for a long time, came back in, and there's that tension there, isn't there, between what the Labour Party want her to do so she can get looked after, and her realisation that if she doesn't do what the electorate want to do, particularly in Rotherham, where so many children were horrifically abused, that she'll be done. I think Rupert Lowe did very, very well, didn't he? And I think as every day goes by, it's interesting. For me, it's interesting to see how the Conservatives are trying to navigate this. I think Kemi Badenoch's given an interview at 10 o'clock with GB News. So I'll play that next time we're on and dissect it. And how Reform are doing it. And I genuinely believe that looking at this, that Reform are more authentic in this space than the Conservatives are. And I'll give you 3 reasons. First, Reform had it specifically in the manifesto in the elections. They had made reference to the grooming gangs. It was there explicit. Second, the Conservatives had 14 years, and even when decent local Conservative councillors wrote to them, they still avoided launching a public inquiry in any of the places. Telford, Oldham, whatever. Didn't seem interested. Suella Braverman got on board for a little while, tried to play politics with it, didn't stop to understand the nuances of it. And while she was Home Secretary, we forced her to release a report that was nothing but a cover-up now, and a report that no one now talks about because it's been so discredited. Right? Of course Corbyn voted against the inquiry. What did you think he was going to do? He leads a group, he sits with a group in Parliament that on the pro-Palestinian front, the other 3 or 4 he sits with are Pakistani kingpins, aren't they? The senior figures in the Pakistani communities. Were the Labour Party split? The Pakistani vote went and just voted for their own. And the third reason, sorry, going back to reasons, is because the way in which Reform are speaking out. And I've got to see what Kemi Badenoch then says tomorrow. But for me, she comes across too polished, as though someone's written her speeches for her and she's trying to, it's just not authentic enough yet. Or maybe that's just her style, I don't know. I'm not a Conservative, I don't know. And I've not seen enough of her in a leadership position to make a judgment call yet. But this is what's happened. She released this 5 points, and I think, I'll do what I do with you guys. I'll go through the 5 points. Yes, the woman on the Conservative side did keep pulling faces, didn't she? Yeah. Child sex exploitation abuse, CSEA, is endemic in the UK and needs to be recognised as a national priority. It is clear that the public distrusts government and authorities when it comes to preventing and prosecuting child abuse. The statistics on this crime show the scale of the problem. The high level of public concern and mistrust only emphasises why addressing it must be a priority. These recommendations to the government are to be run concurrently, though by their nature one will feed into another. Transparency, accountability and justice needs to be embedded into this process, with victims and survivors sitting at its heart. So she first of all wants the government to implement the ICSA inquiry recommendations, which the government only brought that bill forward, by the way, and what they were doing there was to deflect away from the grooming gang scandal, to say, look, we're sorting the ICSA thing out. That was a deflection tactic. It wasn't in the manifesto or anything like that. They brought that forward as a deflection. Are grooming gangs still happening, or have cases been missed? Require all local authorities and police to audit child protection referrals linked to CSE over the last 10 years post-J inquiry into Rotherham. This would be UK-wide and the results analysed by an independent panel. Areas would be given a series of standard canary questions which would highlight any areas of concern. For example, detail the cases of CSE and how you responded to them. An area saying they do not have CSE would trigger an immediate inquiry. National inquiry locally led. Local inquiries do not have the power to compel witnesses' evidence, nor would they satisfy the public concern of cover-ups. There needs to be a national Telford-style model which is nationally resourced and victim-centred. The hub-and-spoke inquiry would be rolled out by the Home Office to areas that trigger the threshold for greater scrutiny. Triggers would be victim and survivor reports, self-referral by local councils or police, or concerns raised from the independent panel. The findings from the inquiries would then be fed back to the Home Office for a national response. Of course, ongoing prosecutions, risks and disciplinaries would run parallel. New commission work into the motivation of grooming gang members. While we know about the crime, we do not know about the reasons for the crime. It is just power and opportunity, or is there something deeper we are failing to address? review if the law is fit for purpose to protect children and prosecute abusers. There needs to be a specific audit of legislation to make sure it is appropriate to secure convictions of child abuse. For example, the Crime and Disorder Act established a framework for local collaboration to reduce crime and enhance community safety, emphasising protective measures based on systemic analysis of crime patterns. With many areas of licensing now falling to local authorities and the Act being updated by subsequent laws, is community involvement and coordination still in place and able to stop grooming gangs? What a load of shit. And this is why, another reason why, apart from me using the word shit perhaps, which I wouldn't use, obviously, in a more public setting. This is classic deflection. This is now when they're at risk of losing, they're trying to set up a space where it looks like they're doing the right thing when really they're not doing anything of the sort. This is absolutely disgraceful, and I'll tell you why. First and foremost, there's no reference in this to Pakistani rape gangs. She wants to expand it into its widest context, so grooming gangs include all sorts. There's no reference to race. When we all know these are racially motivated crimes. She wants, and I'll read number 4, she wants a new commission to work into the motivations of grooming gang members. There's 20 fucking years of victim testimony. Those court records that are coming out bit by bit will show it as well, of what the victims have said as to what the motivations were of the grooming gang members. There's 20 years and more of records of what the groomers said their motivation was, you white slut, for instance. You don't need a new commission to work out the motivation of Pakistani racists. You don't need to review if the law is fit for purpose to protect children and protect abusers. That is complete nonsense. That is the ideal job for a civil servant to drag something out. There is no need whatsoever to see if the law is fit for purpose. The government to implement the ICSA inquiry recommendations has got nothing to do with grooming gangs. It's been proven. ICSA did not look into grooming gangs, and the recommendations have got nothing to do with grooming gangs. Are grooming gangs still happening, or have cases been missed? She wants some questions, some standard questions. Detail the case of CSE and how you responded to them. What utter garbage is this? She wants people to self-evaluate. Has any council in this country demonstrated the ability to self-evaluate their ability to look after children that were groomed and gang raped by Pakistani rape gangs? Is there a single council in this country that has done that successfully? The only thing that works for me in this, because I try to be fair, the only thing that works for me here is the national inquiry locally led, because she acknowledges acknowledges what we've been saying. I've been criticising, you've all seen it. But Raja, we've got an inquiry. No, you don't understand. They're fudging it, you don't understand. And then some of my own supporters look really disheartened. Because I know they're playing us. Now what they've admitted, or acknowledged finally, because there's no place to hide anymore, is that local inquiries do not have the power to compel witnesses or evidence. What have I been saying? You can't go and get the evidence. There's no power. You're reliant on those you're investigating. Nor would they satisfy the public concerns of cover-up. Well, seen as though the local inquiries have been nothing but cover-ups. She wants a national Telford-style model which is nationally resourced and victim-centred. Okay, I get that. I read the Telford report. I think the judge was brilliant. Did his best. The problem with the Telford-style report, it doesn't have the power to compel witnesses or evidence. The judge made reference to it himself. Do you see, like what I did yesterday? The first sentence and the second sentence are in complete contradiction to each other. The hub and spoke inquiry would be rolled out by the Home Office to areas that trigger the threshold for greater scrutiny. So once you've self-evaluated, triggers would be victim and survivor reports, self-referral by local councils or police, or concerns raised from the independent panel. It's the closest we can get, is the hub and spoke model, is the closest I can get to supporting this. If I was Reform, or if I was the Conservatives, I wouldn't be getting involved in this. This is why, another reason why they don't want me. I would be getting involved in setting the framework for what a national inquiry looks like, and taking a bill, because the opposition get 20 odd days a year, by the way, so there's nothing stopping the opposition parties from presenting a bill. There's no need for Reform yet to say we will launch our own public inquiry that actually has no teeth. There's no need for that yet. They, or the Conservatives, or joint, should take a bill using their own. Do you not remember, was it last year? Or the year before? When the Labour Party was in opposition, they took a bill to Parliament to do with free school dinners. Marcus Rashford was involved. There's nothing to stop the Conservatives or Reform taking a bill forward. So that MP charters can't try and fudge it and say, no, we are voting for something else. That's specific to do with the grooming gangs. With a 5-point plan, a 7-point plan, I'll write the bloody thing for him. It'll take me half a day. Get in touch, I'll write it for you. I'll draft it for you and send it you. I can do better than this. So that is what the Labour Party are up to. Sarah Champion, Rotherham. Ooh, I've changed my mind. She's not really changed her mind. What she's doing is playing both sides. Comes forward with this nonsense. The press whip it up. Look, Sarah Champion's now come out in support of a public inquiry. Isn't it great? It's all changing sides. Sarah Champion. The other guy, what's he called? From Rochdale. The guy from Liverpool. This is what controlled opposition looks like. You take it to a space where you're happy to support it, looking like you're reluctant, looking like you're doing the right thing, but it never gets to solving the issue in the first place. It's no different, is it? The way they tried to play us in Oldham is no different to how they're trying to play the country. And forever they've got away with it. Because they present something, the mainstream media picks up on it, they create a narrative together and they go on a journey. What they've now got is a media platform that they can't control, that people such as myself engage in. Doesn't matter if I educate 50 of you or 100 of you. You go and speak to people, you go and speak to people. If you're interested in this work, I suggest you write to your Reform MP or your Conservative MP to insist that they do not support Sarah Champion's 5-point plan, because it's clear what is taking place there. And instead, draft their own bill as a priority. Thank you. And please, if you find value in my work, you saw what I did yesterday. I presented the case, the entire dossier. I articulated the cover-up. I showed the case against McMahon, and then I also showed you within the detail, the report itself, evidence of the horrific cover-up and failings. No one will have done that. And when you go away tonight, you will see no one will have deconstructed Sarah Champion's, "Oh, I'm supporting a public inquiry." No. And whilst the mainstream media want nothing to do with me, that's fine by me. But you need to support me. If you take value, if every one of you who takes value just bought me a samosa, spent a couple of quid a time, then I can keep going. Ask the people of my town the difference I've made. Ask them if they know anyone who works harder. Night and day on this. This opportunity will not come again. And if we don't get the public inquiry with the terms of reference that we need it to be, then it'll be a complete waste of time. And no child will get justice. And the cover-up will be no different than how I articulated Burnham's cover-up to be yesterday. Because the truth of it is, there is just a small group of us. A small group of us fighting the machinery of the entire government, of the entire establishment. And yes, we have got allies. There are people in Parliament now who support us. I think both in the Conservatives and within Reform. There are people in the Conservatives who would have encouraged Rupert Lowe to carry on, rather than that woman in front of him. No. It won't be exposed, just a matter of when. If we don't expose it, if we don't fight for it, it'll just go back to how it was. So there you have it. I will be back on Wednesday. Wednesday is my plan. Just to give you an update, tomorrow I've got a whole host of interviews. I am in Oldham tomorrow, tea time, meeting some people. I'm, park your, what's the saying about parking your tank on the lawn? So I'll be in and around the Annie Kenny statue about 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. I think I'm in the Egyptian rooms, meeting some friends. If you're passing through, by all means, come and have a drink with me. It'll be my pleasure to say hello. I've got some interviews in the morning, interviews in the afternoon. I think I've got some interviews in the evening. I'm running around desperately trying to present our case and our understanding on this, and to challenge what is increasingly becoming an official narrative. And this isn't going to go to a good place unless we do something about it. Thank you. That's exactly it. So, please support me if you can. Please subscribe to the channel. Oh, and sign up to Red Wall and the Rabble. Even if it's a free subscription, but because I put out all my written content on Red Wall and the Rabble. Take time and effort into it. I released something today, and I think if you're on it, you'll enjoy reading it. It's a short read, but it's concise, it's precise, you'll enjoy reading it. My name is Raja MIAH. A very, very good evening.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them. On the 20th of November 2003, James Ignatius O'Rourke McMahon was elected councillor for the Failsworth East Ward of Oldham. Deeply ambitious, he ruthlessly rose to power, and by 2011 he was already leader of the council. In 2015, exploiting a Labour Party loophole, he became MP for Oldham West and Royton. If only the people of the town knew then what they now know. Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.